Lionel Messi is one of football's biggest names, but the Argentinian is leaving Barcelona because the Spanish club can't afford to keep him. So, have footballers become too expensive? And what will Messi's departure mean for the sport and the fans? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. Lionel Messi and Barcelona's long and illustrious history together is now over. The Argentinian was barely a teenager when he joined the Spanish football club, rising to become one of the world's best players. He's also one of the most expensive, earning an estimated $10 million a month. Ultimately, the partnership ended because of money. The club said keeping their star would mean spending more than 110% of its revenue on salaries, which would violate financial rules in the Spanish league. Messi is now likely to move to Paris Saint-Germain, playing alongside other big names like Neymar and Mbappe. We'll bring in our guests in a moment. First, this report from David Stokes.
Lionel Messi started crying before he even started speaking at his farewell ceremony. 3 days after Barcelona said they could no longer afford to keep him, he confirmed he was leaving and was given a standing ovation by the media and several of his teammates, past and present.
In these last few days, I was thinking about what I would say today, but to be honest, I couldn't come up with anything. I was blocked, like I am right now. I was convinced I would stay.
Thousands of fans gathered at Barcelona's stadium to say goodbye to their hero, who joined them 21 years ago at the age of 13. Since then, he's won 35 titles, scored a club record 682 goals, and has been crowned the world's best player an unprecedented 6 times. Messi had agreed to take a pay cut to stay, but Barcelona still can't make it work, they say, because of salary cap rules in the Spanish league.
I cannot talk for the club. The president says they cannot renew my contract due to La Liga. I can only say that I did everything possible to stay here.
Now without a club or a contract, Messi is currently the most sought-after free agent in history. Paris Saint-Germain, one of the few clubs who can afford him, are now favourites to sign him for a reported $35 million a season. It's certainly the end of an era, but not the end of Messi's career. The 34-year-old Argentinian says he's going to carry on competing for as long as he can. David Stokes, Al Jazeera.
The pandemic is biting into the finances of European football clubs. Barcelona lost $117 million in revenues last year, bringing its total debt to an estimated $1.4 billion. Most of that came from renewing stadiums and overpaying players. Salaries have increased by more than 200% since the year 2000. Barcelona has the best paid team in the world. The average salary last year at the La Liga champions was $9.8 million. European clubs can afford paying that much by selling merchandise and broadcasting rights. In the early 1990s, for example, the English Premier League sold TV rights for nearly $280 million. Last year, that amount increased to $7 billion. All right, let's bring in our guests. In Liverpool, Kieran Maguire, a football finance lecturer at the University of Liverpool. In Barcelona, Jennifer Seefoo, Spain correspondent for Milenio TV. And from Neuchâtel, Switzerland, Raphael Poli, head and co-founder of the research group Football Observatory at the International Center for Sports Studies. A warm welcome to you all, and thanks for joining us today on Inside Story. Kieran, let me start with you today. Could you have ever imagined that all of this would have played out the way it has?
It does seem to have been very political, and I think everybody thought that there would be some sort of last-minute reprieve that would enable, or would have enabled, Lionel Messi to have stayed at Barcelona. But it appears that the application of the La Liga rules has been enforced, and that left the club with no alternative but to effectively release him from his contract and allow him to take his career elsewhere.
Jennifer, from your vantage point there in Barcelona, what are the fans thinking and feeling right now? Are they simply sad? Are they angry about how all this went down? What's the mood?
Yeah, yesterday I was in Camp Nou and I talked to the fans and are sad, disappointed, angry. They had been hearing for weeks that they have a deal closed and passes that in one day can have it. It's all changed. People start to not to trust Laporta when Messi cries like that, and listen the cold speech to Laporta when he says doesn't know if the club did it all, and he didn't ask him to have a more chance. The people changed his mind. We need to remember that Laporta's campaign speech was the continue of Messi, and yesterday happens. I think the supporters start to see Laporta with another eyes, and that's the thing I see yesterday in Camp Nou.
Rafael, does this essentially all boil down to Barcelona giving up its star player in order to try to repair its finances?
Yeah, certainly finance is there. It's a matter of money. Messi was earning a lot of money, but not only Messi. Barcelona was paying the most in salaries as any other club, more than Paris Saint-Germain, more than Manchester United. They had a big turnover, of course, but they are heavily indebted. So they had a bad management, and unfortunately for them now, they had to get rid of this superstar. They tried to get rid of other players probably before, but they had valid contracts, which was not the case for Messi. So in the end, they had to surrender to this situation.
Kieran, does cutting Messi loose automatically help with Barcelona's debt load?
Well, it does in the sense that they've knocked off an ongoing salary to now have to pay. But the severity of the cuts in the economic cost control in terms of Barcelona's ability to pay wages and make transfer fees over the course of the next 12 months is very, very significant indeed. And it has effectively made Barcelona competitive with the likes of, say, Leicester City and West Ham in the Premier League. And of course, Barcelona are used to being at the top table. So it will reduce costs, but how do you replace Messi? You know, you've got to spend money to have players of a high caliber. And it's difficult to see how Barcelona can do that under the present cost control measures.
Jennifer, who do you think ultimately bears the most responsibility for what happened? Is it Barcelona, is it La Liga, or is it Messi?
I think, first, Laporta preferred to save the club's economy by bidding on the Superliga. He rejected the Spanish league offer. And with this, the possibility of renewing Messi disappeared completely. Of course, the duty of the president of the club is to fix the inheritance Bartomeu left him. And the reality is that they have not been able to sell players to lower the signing salaries 110% exceeded, and also can reach an agreement with the actual players to be in the club. It was complicated like this to sign a contract like Leo's. The Spanish league starts in the weekend, and it's impossible to do this in 1 week. I think all the points have a lot of in this case.
Rafael, obviously this is all quite complicated, and there's a lot of variables in play here as far as how this decision was ultimately made. But Barcelona's president, Mr. Laporta, had said that trying to keep Lionel Messi could have put the club at risk for 50 years. And I'm sure there's a lot of viewers watching that are simply just, really just sort of scratching their heads and going, how is that possible? I mean, how is that possible that keeping the star player could put the club at risk for that many years?
Yeah, it's a very strange situation because Barcelona was really at the top There was a club wanted to have more than 1 billion turnover per year. But of course, as I said before, they had to pay wages, and a lot of wages also, not only to Messi, but to players such as Griezmann, Coutinho, Dembele. All these players were transferred for more than 100 million euro each. So you can see that previously Barcelona was very keen to develop young players from the Masia, the training center, the academy of the club. And this was the real advantage for them with players like Xavi, Iniesta, Cesc Fabregas, Busquets, Jordi Alba, Victor Valdez, all these players, and Messi himself. But then they get rid from this policy. And unfortunately for them, they made it some very bad transfers that now have even more than Messi probably aggravated the financial situation of Barcelona. But as I say, these players are there, they have to pay them, and Messi was just free of contract, so they did not anticipate the situation, and the bad management they had finally, also with internal struggles between the former propriety ownership and the new one. So that's for sure also to be taken into account.
Kieran, what is it that can ultimately justify the extraordinarily high salaries of superstar players like Messi? Is it simply a case of supply and demand, the marketplace, or is it that marquee players are bringing in viewers and that impacts, TV deals going forward?
Well, ultimately, the ability of a football club to spend money is determined by its ability to generate money. Now, that comes from three sources. There's ticket sales, which at Barcelona have always been high. The club has been hit by the pandemic. It's commercial deals and the broadcasting rights. And it's the players that sell the broadcasting rights because they are the people that people want to tune into. And it is their faces that commercial partners want their products alongside. So therefore, I think you could argue that the salaries are justified, provided the clubs are breaking even. We see huge salaries in other areas of sport, especially in the US, and that's accepted as part of the game. The problem with football is it has been caught out by COVID. And I think the clubs such as Barcelona and Real Madrid, who had banked on the success of the Super League franchise, had a problem when that collapsed because it left them with income which was going to be lower than anticipated.
Kieran, if I could just follow up with you on a point you were making about COVID. I mean, how much has the coronavirus pandemic impacted all of this? How much more fragile is the economic situation for European clubs as a result of COVID-19?
It varies from country to country because it's linked very much to the individual TV deals. So if we take a look at the Premier League in England, because it has the biggest TV deal, it was less subject to the problems caused by COVID. In other countries, where especially France, which has seen its TV deal effectively being scrapped and replaced by one of a much lower magnitude, I think clubs there have been hit far more severely. And as far as Spain is concerned, Real Madrid and Barcelona were both able to generate huge sums of money, not just from matchday tickets, but from the fact that their stadiums are magnificent and they generate a lot of money on non-matchday income as well. So the clubs have been hit by COVID because people attending matches and attending conferences and buying merchandise at the stadium was a huge revenue earner.
Jennifer, you had also wanted to reply to that question about how much COVID-19 has impacted European football clubs. Please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to say that it's a huge impact in the football, Spanish football, and we see in all the clubs, and that's the way that presidents like Joan Laporta, like Florentino Perez, start to fighting to do this Superliga to save one part of the economic of these clubs.
Rafael, is all this a sign, essentially, that European football has just become too expensive?
Yeah, we must say that for the last 2 or 3 decades, there was a recurrent growth of the revenues of clubs because of the money from broadcasters mainly, but also the globalization of the game with new markets, the US, China, India, even the Southeastern Asia more in general. So this brought really to a big momentum for the bonanza of European football, and now things have changed. Of course, the pandemic came to aggravate the situation, but there were already signs that this big inflation for the biggest leagues and clubs was a bit curbing, and now we are plenty in this situation where I think the maximum was reached, or at least there will be a stagnation, with also the younger generation, which are perhaps a bit more less interested in football, or to say better, less interested to pay money to see football. And this, of course, impacts clubs also beyond the COVID, even though, of course, the COVID was also an aggravating factor that anticipated a bit future problems.
Kieran, you know, when we have these types of discussions around football, ultimately, many people say that what's going on when it comes to salaries, when it comes to cost increases, that it really highlights a growing disconnect between the big business of sport and these communities of sports fans around the world. You know, kids in various countries kicking a ball around, aspiring to be like their football heroes. Ultimately, who owns football?
Ultimately, it is owned by the fans, in the sense that if there is a genuine disconnect, the fans will stop buying the merchandise, they will stop attending the matches, and they will stop paying the TV subscriptions. But whilst I don't think there's a lot of growth, I think it could be said that we have reached peak interest, that doesn't necessarily mean that interest is going to fall. If you look at most matches in Europe, once crowds are allowed to return, I think matches will still sell out, especially between the bigger clubs in the individual leagues. And the idea that football is starting to be a dying sport is a myth, because you've only got to look at the number of young people who are buying kit, who are playing football at school and at youth level, and that's being maintained. And it could be argued that actually it's becoming a more diverse game, because certainly there's far more interest in women's football, and we are seeing players come from all over the world to ply their trade in especially in Europe and in Asia as well. And there's no reason why that cannot continue. It's a competitive market, but there's no reason why football can't compete. It is ultimately the world's favourite sport.
Jennifer, when you speak to the fans, as you have been doing the past several days, I mean, do they believe that big business is ruining sport, that big business is ruining football, or are they okay with the way things are going right now?
No, it's not the way that he thinks it's going to be the football in the future, because don't want to see all of these games like the Champions League in some places that less the player to win some leagues, some cups, and make all these the players are no happy to make these transportations, these kinds of trips, and the fans think it's too much, and they have to spend a lot of money, because these championships, these cups, make he needs to pay a lot of money to see his team, to see players like Messi, like Cristiano Ronaldo, like Neymar, and all of this is like a more industry that the football can be at the first times.
Rafael, what are the implications for football going forward if Messi does as expected and signs with Paris Saint-Germain?
Of course, it will be a dream team, this Paris Saint-Germain, with Neymar, Mbappé, Messi. It's an incredible setup. So all football fans can enjoy it in advance, because they are incredible champions, all of them. But now, of course, it's not always the best who win, or on paper they are the best, but still you have other teams competing. Even Barcelona, of course, they losing the star player, but recently things weren't going very good, so probably they will have to rejuvenate the squads. They already have some young talents like Pedri or De Jong. They are really performing well, so the new generation is there. So we'll see. Messi is already 34. Of course, on the paper, as I said, now Paris Saint-Germain is the team to be beaten, of course, in the Champions League. But the ball is round, as we say, and I think this is the beauty of football, because now it will be time to play the games and to see who is really the best.
Kieran, there was this announcement that was made that there was to be a massive private equity investment by the private equity firm CVC. They wanted to invest 2.7 billion euros into La Liga in exchange for 10% revenue and 10% stake in most of its business. Many thought that investment would help ensure Barcelona had the money it needed to keep Messi, but Barcelona said the deal would not be in its interests. Why is that? Why the objections to that?
I think the objections are twofold. First of all, under the terms of the deal, only a relatively small proportion of the money from CVC could be allocated to players' wages. So therefore, it wouldn't actually be addressing the player cost issues that exist at Barcelona. The second reason is that Barcelona believe that the deal vastly undervalues La Liga in its present form, and also it could present some form of constraint in terms of Barcelona's continued desires for the Super League franchise project to work, which they believe will concentrate money and power in the hands of the clubs behind Super League, and therefore they would want to be able to keep 100% of that profits rather than giving 10% to a third party.
Jennifer, there is a perception among some that Barcelona perhaps threw in the towel too quickly, that maybe they should have pressured La Liga more in order to try to keep Messi. From what you hear from the fans, do they believe that Barcelona backed down too quickly?
No, I think it's a surprise that I commented you at first. The fans think that Messi is going to be in Barcelona the next 2 seasons. That is all the way that is the weeks tell that Messi is gonna sign the contract for 2 years and then go to the United States like an ambassador of the Barcelona team. And it's like a surprise. It's not quick because the Spanish league starts this weekend, and Barca needs to present the first team and sign all the papers with La Liga. And the difficult to know in this case for the fans is to know if Laporta makes the best way to protect Barcelona economy or not, because all the money that Messi wins to the club is too important, and in this case is going to compete with Barcelona if he go to the PSG. And with this team, with Neymar, with Di Maria and Mbappe, if it doesn't go, it's gonna be a good team for Paris, and less expectations to the Barcelona fans to win another champions in this case, because it's not happy. The fans are not happy with the actual team. Needs another star. Needs Messi in his field.
All right, we have run out of time, so we're going to have to leave the conversation there. Thanks so much to all of our guests, Kieran Maguire, Jennifer Seefoo, and Rafael Poli. And thank you too for watching. You can see this and all of our previous programs again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com, And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Mohammed Jamjoom, and the whole team here, bye for now.